Very good afternoon. My name is Giovanni Franzese. I have the pleasure to spend 25 minutes with you talking about enterprise blockchain. I just joined N-Chain recently, but my background is actually with Ericsson. And for those of you relating Ericsson to phones, no, Ericsson doesn't make phone anymore. Ericsson is one of the main vendors for telecom equipments. And I spent my last 6 years, more or less, on building up the organization of Ericsson. And I will share with you my experience because enterprise blockchain is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. It's not me saying that. Well, I can say based on my experience, of course. But if you read analyst reports, then you will see, and I can quote just one, which is from Cambridge University, saying many enterprises are interested in the blockchain. Few, they make experiments in the lab. Fewer, they move to proof of concept. Even fewer, they go to MVP, a minimum viable product, and almost no one is able to reach the product level. Only 5% of all of those enterprises moving to blockchain, they manage to bring real products in the market. And the experience I share with you, we did it with Ericsson, with the 4 products, and I will show you just a few of them. But the flip side of the success is the tremendous effort, and I want to share with you such experience so that if you are here today, right, either you are from enterprise and you want to learn a little bit more how to use blockchain, or you are on the other side, you are from blockchain and you want to support enterprise. So I will try to bring you both together. Another thing is enterprise blockchain is usually related to private blockchain platforms. Okay? And my question here to you is still worth it? And we will answer it together. We will see in the next slide if private blockchain platforms still make sense to use today. Okay, so we said this is enterprise blockchain. So there are 2 pieces. One is the enterprise, the other is blockchain. So just to be all on the same page, let's recap all together why blockchain, okay? So that everybody, we can understand each other. So blockchain, why it's so important, why it's so different, why it's so disruptive. So the traditional model that we use when we want to build up a digital flow, internally or with our customers, it doesn't matter really. When we want to build up an application bringing many parties together, the existing IT model is the so-called client-server, right? So we are a little bit familiar with that. Or it's the so-called 2 or 3-tier architectural model. So what is wrong with this model? Or why it doesn't work if we want to build up application where all the parties involved in this application, they feel comfortable with? So the problem with this kind of architecture is one of the party involved, so in a client-server mode, for instance, one has to host the backend, which is often the database where the data resides. Okay, so this is the main problem, because in a business there is no trust between the parties. It's business. We don't have to trust of anyone. So if we have to trust of someone where I put my data there, knowing that someone can change and manipulate, then you understand it's a lack of trust that doesn't make me feel very comfortable, right? So blockchain is disruptive because it's a distributed architecture at first. And we don't have a database anymore. You know, the database, as long as you have the right rights, the right grants, you can change, manipulate. The model applied for the traditional database is called the CRUD, create, read, update, and delete records. So as long as you have the right, you can change and do whatever you do, whatever you want. In blockchain, the database actually is not a real database, it's something similar. It's called node or ledger. And what makes this blockchain database so exceptional is the immutability, in the sense you cannot change. There is no way you cannot change it, okay? And if someone tells you you can change the ledger, then it's not a real blockchain platform, okay? So the ledger or the node, it's immutable, and it's a distributed architecture. And what brings this? Well, brings trust between the parties. Because then if we build up an application where the data is distributed and every party has the same kind of data, which I know nobody can change, then you understand, I trust. I trust of the technology. I don't trust of people. I don't trust of another company. I don't trust of my client or my supplier. No, I just trust of the technology. Nobody can change it, okay? So here, sum up. Immutability of the ledger and the distributed architecture. Last one, which when we talk of blockchain, we hear many benefits, many capabilities. I try here to sum up easily because I think some capabilities are key and some capabilities, they are a consequence of this main capability. For instance, we talked about the immutability, right? As a consequence of immutability, we have the integrity of data. Because if you cannot change it, then you have the integrity of data. Then we also said it's a distributed architecture, which means everybody in the flow, every party involved, then has the data. It's distributed, and then you can trace whatever it happens in the network, right? The other two are transparency and privacy. Now, this may sound controversial because transparency is on the opposite side of the privacy. Either you have full transparency or you have full privacy, right? Those are the two extremes of this spectrum. But this is the beauty of blockchain. This duality of blockchain, you can still have both transparency and privacy. There are techniques, and this is a business stage, so I don't want to bother you with the technical stuff, but there are things that you can do to keep all the characteristics of blockchain and still provide the privacy. And for enterprise blockchain, the privacy is key. I remember my very first engagement with my stakeholders, especially with the finance, when I started promoting within Ericsson blockchain, and like all of us saying transparency. And I remember they were terrified. They said, what transparency? No, we don't want transparency. And this is totally reasonable because in a corporate environment, especially for sensitive data like finance, you don't want transparency. You want privacy. You want to have the possibility to decide who should be able to read the data that you want. And this is transparency. So transparency, and in Europe we have a very strict restriction when it comes to privacy with the GDPR. Blockchain, not all the platforms, but blockchain can still provide this fantastic duality, which seems to be in contrast, but they are two sides of the same medal, transparency and privacy. Another one is security, right? So here I don't think I have to add many things on security, but I want to make a point. Every transaction is signed off, So we know exactly who sent this transaction because there is your digital fingerprint, there is your digital signature, and this brings the so-called the no repudiation. What is the no repudiation? When someone sees the transaction, then there is the digital signature. Then, if there is your digital signature, you cannot deny you didn't send it. It's you. It's your digital signature. And this is called the no repudiation, which actually is not a technology stuff. This concept comes from legal. So the no repudiation is a legal concept that we embrace now also in blockchain. And another stuff, the last one, is the smart contract and the possibility to extend the meaning of a transaction, not only like a payment, right? So with Bitcoin was a pure payment system, but we can make the business logic. What is a transaction? How should move the transaction? Who should sign? And so on and so forth. With smart contract and scripting, then you are able to define your business logic. With that, we have done with blockchain. Now, let's have a look to the enterprise side, okay? Why we use blockchain in enterprise and why the enterprise struggles. Well, main purpose when I started was to bring efficiency in the processes. And enterprises, the more they are big, the more you need business processes, both internally and externally with your client, with your customers, suppliers, and so on and so forth. So the only way to give a governance to an enterprise is through business processes. And for instance, in Ericsson, we had hundreds of processes, hundred. But I mean, a simple one, a stupid one. I want to book a flight for a business trip. I follow a process, which usually is documented. So I have to understand who I should contact, who should approve. I have to understand all the flow. And in a company, it's also very difficult to find the information, and all those processes are very silent. Both within the same process, so a process is a series of actions, right? And someone has to do something, and then it goes to the next level, which has to do something else, and then until to the end, right? But usually, when you finish the process, since there is lack of transparency between the parties, so you see little database, everybody is very jealous of the data in that silos. There is no way to control the flow end to end, right? So there is the data is fragmented, and since the data is replicated in many places, then it's also redundant, and there is no way to control all the steps, right? Blockchain solves all these problems. So you can apply blockchain for any business process, both internally and externally. Why? Because you have, as we said before, the ledger is the source of truth shared between all, and nobody can change or fake it. With the smart contract, you can implement the business process, so you decide who should do the next step and what should be done in the next step, and so on and so forth, in order to make all the process from the beginning to the end extremely consistent. Okay? So by doing this, now I show you two of the use cases that we implemented for Ericsson. The very first one addresses one of the trickiest processes that we had, which is called Ericsson Customer Acceptance, which is the process when we sell a network equipment. Basically, the customer usually says, okay, dear Ericsson, now you install this antenna here with plenty of parameters that someone has to set. Okay? And in the process, there are plenty, tens and tens and tens of people involved with a hierarchy of approvers. So this process, like many others, and you can figure out in your enterprises, but in these processes, we have the usual problems of all the processes, very fragmented, very difficult, even from the customer, to understand, okay, dear Ericsson, where we are with this process, how many antennas you installed, and where, and which parameters. By using blockchain, you can provide this information in real time, just querying the ledger, right? And you have the process very consistent, step by step, because you implement the business logic through smart contract or through scripts, okay? So this was a great success, and we deployed now this product for tens of customers globally. And if I was not very clear in the message what this does, then there is a very short video, 2 minutes.
Ericsson deploys mobile networks on a daily basis. Each network has unique requirements and technical challenges. Getting those networks validated and accepted is complex, involving multiple services, technologies, suppliers, and approval levels. Collecting the relevant proof points with speed and accuracy requires a flexible acceptance process, high level of visibility, and traceability across the entire chain. Without it, time to market gets delayed. Imagine intelligent deployment solving these challenges. Ericsson has revolutionized network deployment with a digital, agile, and modular suite of tools enabling customers to capture the benefits of intelligent deployment. Ericsson Customer Acceptance introduces a whole new approach built on blockchain technology, making acceptance swift, easy, and intuitive, like never before. How does it work? All parties involved in the process are members of the acceptance ecosystem. Information flow is streamlined and validated in real time. And at every step of the acceptance process, using digital signatures and smart contract rules, Ericsson Customer Acceptance builds bridges between all parties, providing visibility, traceability, and data integrity. It delivers a shared and agreed immutable source of truth. Built with users in mind, Ericsson Customer Acceptance brings meaningful and intuitive functionality with immediate benefits. Through this collaborative ecosystem, Ericsson makes it possible to overcome traditional acceptance barriers.
So this was the very first one of its kind made for telecom. And we showcased this at the telco event, which is called Mobile World Congress, which is the event for telecom. Another one I want to show you is for trade finance. So I don't know if there is anyone from trade finance here, but it's called letter of credit. This is another business process run together with our clients, and this time we have also the banks between us. When do we use this? When there is a lack of trust with our customers, because, for instance, it's a tricky country from a trust perspective, and this can happen, right? Or because even there is some problem with the customer itself, that we deliver the good or the services, but we don't get paid. And this is a very standardized process. It's a very standardized process, so whatever in telecom, but in any other industry, is all the same. We also brought this into the market, and I will show you also a little video about letter of credit.
Every day, Ericsson manages financial transactions with our customers across the globe. International transactions can be highly complex due to the multiple entities and regulations involved in securing payments and correctly transferring ownership of goods. A letter of credit is governed under International Code of Practice and global trade to provide risk mitigation and to foster trust between parties, simplifying compliance with international standards and regulations. Traditionally, a letter of credit is issued through a time-consuming, tedious process with low visibility and traceability. It involves negotiations and handovers between corporations and banks, and paperwork that needs to be manually assessed and maintained by multiple parties. Imagine if handling a letter of credit could be trustworthy, fully traceable, digital, smooth-flowing, and efficient. Thanks to advanced blockchain capabilities, enhancing our current use of technology, it's possible. Utilizing a global trade network, Ericsson and its customers, with their respective banks, can digitally process a letter of credit. Smart contracts and digital signatures secure the execution of the letter of credit with speed, simplicity, and traceability at every step of the way. This innovative solution enables collaboration across the trade ecosystem while maintaining data integrity. Blockchain technology marks a paradigm shift in the way we complete a range of transactions, ensuring Ericsson continues forging a path toward trustworthy trade finance.
This was yet another example on how to use blockchain to secure business processes. Now, my point is, when I started 6 years ago, more or less, I used private blockchain platforms or protocols. Now, today, after 6 years, can we do it better? And here we need to compare a little bit the status of private blockchain today against public blockchain today. So my drivers in the past was to have a fast network, a scalable blockchain network, and a cheap network. So where we are today, public is still slow, right? Even with the proof of concept introduced with Ethereum, is still 20 transactions per second, really, 20 transactions per second. But in public, we have one platform that now we know the name, it's BSV, it's 50,000 transactions per second, and you don't need the layer 2 or whatever. So it's fast and it's extremely scalable. Cheap, okay, we will see, I will come back to this, but for private, you know, we have to pay a lot of license. And another thing, which is extremely important, for private, if you decide to implement your use case on private blockchain, bear in mind, you have to have a huge team, because every time you have to build up the network from the ground. So you need plenty of people, infrastructure, cloud, for the integration, front end. You need a lot of people. And if you don't do the job in the right way, no way this application can be profitable and good for your company. In fact, today we are assisting to a clear shift from public blockchain from private blockchain to public. This is clear. I also had a chat behind the stage with the Agatha, I think is the name, the IBM kind lady that today had the panel. And even IBM was a big promoter of private blockchain, but even IBM now is moving to public. And this is an example that I want to share with you. This is from a few weeks ago, actually. This is from Trade Window. This is a big company in New Zealand in logistics, moving with on-chain from private Hyperledger to public BSV. Okay, so this is clear. It's a clear trend. So if you guys have in mind to implement any blockchain solution in your company, then go public. And here I have a little benchmark. We will go through it extremely quickly because I am already running out of time. But you see here public and private. I want to mention a few things. Okay, let's start with the immutability of data. You will see the known platforms in private, they don't have immutability. It's still really a blockchain platform. When it comes to throughput, we already talked about, right? So 50,000 transactions in public, it's whatever you need. Others, they cannot keep up with this capacity. And the last point on the how expensive is to maintain your application. If you go public and if you go with BSV, you pay per transaction and the network is already there and you pay 100 of 1 cent of dollar per transaction, which is nothing. If you want to go private, then, for instance, R3, you need to pay the license, which are very costly. Otherwise, you can say, yeah, but then I go with Hyperledger Fabric because it's open source. Hold on. If you go with Hyperledger Fabric, be aware, for any problem you have with Hyperledger Fabric, then you have to rely to the open community to fix it. And how do you entertain your customer when you have a problem, right? So be aware of this. I have done. I want to just close my speech with a few things. Here we talked about technology, right? But it's not only about technology. Take care of the user experience. It has to be done in a way that people using the application doesn't care about the technology. It has to be, you don't use any user manual anymore when you buy your phone, right? You need to do it in the same way. And the last point, this is still innovation. So if you are in a big corporate, then you need to break a lot of walls, a lot of resistance. So bring with you the big management because we'll support you. Otherwise, it's extremely difficult. And this is my very last before someone will throw me away. It's not only related about technology. It's not only what we do for us in this industry, in the blockchain. We don't do this only because of the technology. We know blockchain goes beyond the technology. And I want to close with the quote of Kristen, our CEO in Enchain. We do this because we want to make a better world to live. That's it.